Are you looking for affordable office space in Marion? The professional building located at 685 Delaware Avenue is the place for you. For more information, call 740-383-6803. Office space is now available. Again, telephone number 740-383-6803.
Scott Spears. Welcome to Scott Spears Now, broadcasting from the Women's Club home on East Center Street here in Marion. Going to have a panel discussion today with two of my favorite ladies, former broadcaster, anchor, WCMH, WSYX, and on WMRN radio here in Marion, Mary Ann Michaels, and a many-time guest of this program as of late. We're so glad to have her back here in Marion, the 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow. Thank you both for being here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Fun to be here.
Yeah, and we're going to get into it now. The day we're taping this is a Sunday, and this morning the world, I think, was sad to learn of the death of Senator George McGovern.
Yes.
Died this morning at 90 years old. Democratic senator, ran for president in 1972, the infamous Watergate campaign, in which he ran against President Richard Nixon. Turns out there might have been, it turns out there was something going on the other side, kind of strangely. But McGovern went on, lived to be a very nice elder statesman. Just wanted to get your thoughts on George McGovern. What you remember about him, Mary Ann?
Wow. I think I don't remember him as well as probably Ellen would remember him. But I just remember he was a very popular Democrat at the time and very well respected, and did quite well for himself, I imagine.
I think had a good long life.
Yes.
90 years old.
That's a long life.
Mary Ellen, your thoughts on George McGovern?
Well, 1972, I ran for clerk of courts, and I remember it was quite a campaign. But then I saw George McGovern when he was ambassador. I'm sitting here trying to remember where he was ambassador. Was it Japan? Is that in the obituary or anything?
It's not in the, but I saw it on television this morning, and I think it might have been Japan.
Well, I visited him in Japan, and this is what I noticed about him. After he ran for president, he was he relaxed, and I noticed that about other candidates. After they run for president and then they go through all of that, it seems like it causes them to be more relaxed and make better speeches than they did when they were running, which is what he did. He told jokes, and he was very funny.
Two things about George McGovern that I don't know if most people know. They're fascinating. This man, who was probably more affected by Watergate than anybody, he's the candidate who the sabotage happened to, supported the pardon of Gerald Ford of Richard Nixon, was on record saying he supported it, and actually at the time wanted to join up with Barry Goldwater and do it bipartisan. Barry Goldwater wouldn't do it because he felt Nixon had lied to him too much. But George McGovern, and he said it in later years, supported the pardon of Richard Nixon, which a lot of people didn't. What do you think of that, Mary Ann?
Well, I think those were the days when there wasn't so much division and I don't know, with the parties. It just seems like everything is partisan anymore. Instead of doing things for the country, they do things for themselves. And I think this year especially, it's been really bad. I don't know, how do you feel about it, Mary Ellen?
Yes.
I am so sick of all of these vitriolic words that are passed back and forth. That wasn't always the case.
No, but if you read back in history, some of those campaigns when Lincoln was running, and they were vicious. I mean, just vicious.
I remember those cartoons I remember seeing the cartoons that were so terrible.
Well, the debates, they had a lot of debates back then.
They did.
More than 3, yes.
But we have a few people in the audience here. What do you think? Do you think it's tough to run for office now? Are you sick of the commercials? Yeah, everybody resounding yes. Do you think they're more rude than they have to be? Yeah.
Well, Scott, we're in a targeted state. They have to win Ohio. We're getting a lot more commercials than maybe Nebraska or North Dakota. I doubt if the president has been to North Dakota. And you know how many times everybody's been here because we're targeted.
No ads in New York.
Same with the ads. But back to the why I don't understand why McGovern would be in favor of the pardon. That doesn't make sense to me. So I'd like to know his thinking on that.
Well, I want to mention this about George McGovern, one more thing, because I find this absolutely dramatic in the world of bipartisan politics that we have now. George McGovern, in 2007, on Larry King's program at the time, Larry King Live, George McGovern went on, it was during Gerald Ford's death, and Larry King was doing a lot of tribute shows to Jerry Ford. George McGovern said for the first time that he voted for Jerry Ford over Jimmy Carter. He voted for the man who pardoned the man that beat him in the election. He said his wife did also and his kids did also. He said he voted for Carter again when he ran in '80 against Reagan, but he voted for Ford.
Something.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have to tell you something I've never said before publicly. I voted for him in 1976.
What?
Yes, I did. And at Thanksgiving dinner that year, I never said anything about this to Eleanor or to our 5 children, but I told him at Thanksgiving time I had voted for President Ford, even though he lost. And I told him why, because I thought he had come in at a difficult time. I didn't know President Carter very well then. And that I just felt more comfortable somehow with Jerry Ford, whereupon my wife Eleanor said, so did I vote for him. We went around that table. This is hard to believe. All 5 of my kids voted for him. So they got 7 votes out of the McGovern family for President Ford, and Senator Dole, my longtime Republican friend. I voted for Carter again in 1980. So with my brand of political luck, I voted against Carter when he won. I voted for him when he lost. But I can justify both of those votes.
What a great
What
story.
do you make?
Thank you.
That's big, because I don't think you would have that today. I don't think for a second that a Democrat, vice versa, or Republican would come out and forgive and openly admit to voting for the other party.
No, that's unheard of. But it did take a lot of courage, I would think. He probably got a lot of criticism from his party, maybe, I don't know.
Well, he also said he was going to raise taxes, and that's the reason he lost. That was one of the first things he did in his acceptance speech at the convention. I was there. Yeah.
He's an interesting guy, and I think he will be remembered as a guy who crossed the aisle, and I'm glad we got a chance to remember George McGovern dead at 90. This is just an interesting thing for everybody who's here, and I hope everybody passes the word. Joe Biden coming to Marion this coming Wednesday. Vice President Joe Biden coming to Marion this coming Wednesday. I think it's 12:30 or 12:45 to speak at Harding High School. What a thrill. He was here 4 years ago. It'll be great, Marianne. I know you're very active with the Democratic Party, working. What do you make of this?
Oh, I think it's great. Anytime you get one of the major men who are running for office, it's neat. It really is. And I think it's wonderful for young people to see government at work and to see how things are done. And especially at the high school, I think that's a good idea.
Will you go?
Yes, I have a ticket. You have to have a ticket to go.
You have to get me one, Marianne.
Well, you
That'd
can
be
get
fun.
one.
I'll have to get. Well, I heard it's first come, first serve right now.
Yes.
And they open tomorrow.
Right.
Mary Ellen, first campaign. You weren't here, living in Ohio 4 years ago when Biden came. What do you feel about this coming up Wednesday?
Oh, I think it's great. Everybody's happy. We want everybody to come that wants to come. We get all excited about that.
And you will be there?
Yes, I'll be there.
That'll be a lot of fun. Now we're going to go to the local level here for a second, and I found this very interesting. We have some tax issues coming up this coming election cycle, and one is a county sales tax for 0.25% on your sales tax. Now, this is the story, and I couldn't believe this to some degree, but this happened at the county commissioners meeting on Tuesday, October the 17th. Local businessman Mike Mastro is in charge of a group that supports along with a lot of people who support the sales tax going up. But he got up in the open meeting on October the 17th, and this is what he said. He said, anyone who doesn't support the county sales tax supports sex offenders and drug abusers. What do you think, Mary Ann?
That's a pretty strong statement. I mean, really, that is. And I know Mike Master. In fact, he's a former student of mine. I hate to admit, but he was in my 7th grade English class, and I really liked him. But I don't understand that forceful of a statement.
I understand, and whether you're for or against.
This is the one that is for shoring up the police force. Is that?
Well, I think they both are for that.
Yes, because maybe that's what he means. That if you don't have strong police protection, you're going to have problems.
I think
it was said maybe a little bit differently from what he really meant.
I think that's what he meant. I don't think that's what he said.
Yes.
And I think that was the problem.
Yes, I think so too.
And just for those who were keeping tabs on that, on Thursday, which was the next meeting of the county commissioners, Al Gruber, who is running for county commissioner, stood up and asked for an apology because he does not support the county sales tax and said, I should have the right not to support this, but don't call me somebody who supports sex offenders or drug abusers just because I don't support this.
Yes.
Mary Ellen,
he had every right to say that.
I think, and he also, in the open meeting, asked for an apology from Mike, and Mike said no. He would not give him an apology. So there you have it. Mary Ellen, you've been in many campaigns. Is that the right rhetoric? Do you go as far as you can go to try to get people to vote for what you want?
Well, I think sometimes people get really overly excited about a race, and you have to sort of keep things under control.
Do you think that might have been overstepping?
A little bit, maybe.
Well, I mean, and I think, and I do want to mention this, by the way, and this is of my own accord because I've done some work on this. Well, first of all, I want to poll this because we do have an audience of about 10 or 12 people here. If you want to say, you can. If you don't want to say, that's fine. How many support the county sales tax? Almost everybody. How many support the city tax raise? Not as many, but more. You abstain from that one. That's fine. But I do want to make mention of this, and I want to do it on the air because that's where this will be. I did learn this recently. The city tax, 20% or 40%, excuse me, 40% is absolutely earmarked for the police department. 40% is absolutely earmarked for the fire department. 10% is earmarked for the road maintenance, and 10% is earmarked for 911. So, an emergency dispatch. So, if this tax passes in the city, that's where it's going. The resolution has already been passed. They can't spend it someplace else. And I hadn't heard that conveyed yet in that way, but I got that from Jay McDonald, who's a big part of that. Mary Ellen, your face has been on the literature for that particular one.
Yes, I'm involved. I'm one of the coordinators for it, and I hope it passes because it's really needed. I think we need protection in our city.
And I know of one individual who told me that, and he's a young policeman, also a former student, I might say, and he said, if it doesn't pass, he'll lose his job. And I think that's pathetic. I really do. I think everyone should support strong protection of our city.
Yeah.
I really do. I think, we depend on these people, the firemen and the EMS, and those people are invaluable. I think I totally appreciate them.
Yeah, I think both of these things, I'm not going to give my opinion here because you're not supposed to. I think everybody knows that. But, hey, go to the polls and vote for what you believe. But understand that in the city, at least, this is a done deal, that this is where these funds are going to go. The county, I haven't heard anything back on that, if they've set a resolution aside to say that that's going to go for the sheriff's office. But hopefully it will if it does. Moving on to kind of a strange story. This is just a little bizarre out there. A Canadian author released a new version of Santa for the upcoming holiday season, not smoking a pipe, because he said smoking is not a good thing and Santa Claus should not represent bad things.
I don't remember seeing Santa with a pipe in his mouth.
I think Santa's had a pipe in a lot
Really?
of the lore.
I
Yeah.
don't remember seeing that.
Do you start fooling with things that are years old, Mary Ann, just to say, hey, smoking's not good anymore? I think we know that probably by now, don't you think?
Yes, I think we do. But I can't say that I remember Santa smoking.
I can't either.
Yeah.
I have not
Well, see,
remembered seeing him smoke.
Wouldn't even bother this group if they took away the pipe.
Right.
But I thought that was an interesting bit of, and I think at some point you have to say, listen, that's history. Let's go on. I mean, you can't go back and take the smoking out of movies. You can't go back. Lucy smoked on television.
Yes.
A lot of those people did. You can't go back and just redo it. I think you just have to let it go, and people will make their own decision.
Well, the old movies, it's a lot of smoking in the old movies.
Definitely.
A lot more than there is in the current movies. You know.
Absolutely. Now we're going to switch back to politics here for a second and then switch out for our final topic, and then our great band, our live entertainment, the Revisions, are going to play. This is interesting. The Coke Company sent voter information packets to their employees, letting them know that if President Obama is reelected, they will most likely be laying off employees.
I've heard this, and it just sickens me that CEOs and managers and people like that are, that's fooling with voter rights. I mean, that's intimidation. That's horrible. I think it's absolutely terrible, don't you?
Absolutely. Yes, I've been hearing them talk about it on television, and it's not only there, it's other places too that are threatening.
Let me play devil's advocate.
First of all, how are these CEOs and managers going to know how their employees voted? Are they saying, regardless of how they voted, if he wins, they're going to lose their jobs?
That's the way they're stating it.
Let me just put a check here, play counterpoint to this point. Does the man who owns the Coke Company have freedom of speech to do that?
Yes.
And if President Obama does get elected, does he have the right to lay people off?
Yes.
So if you work for him, does he have the right to say that and do that?
No.
Okay, why?
Because it's intimidating, and people should be able to vote the way they want to vote, not the way their boss votes.
But wouldn't you be worried? I mean, wouldn't you want to know if you were going to be laid off? I mean, if you want to make that decision as the employee and say, hey, I'm going to vote for President Obama anyway because I think he's better for this country, even if it's going to cost me my job.
No, chances are the people will not. They probably won't. They will be intimidated.
I think they will,
Yes,
but
they will be.
But is it his right to do it, or should somebody have stepped in?
Who's going to step in?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, who's going to stop that?
Well, and let me just put it this, because I'm going to bring it back to a local level here for just 1 second. When these taxes, because we just talked about them, the city and the county tax, are both pretty well running on the idea that we need law enforcement. We need to be safer. Mm-hmm. Isn't that, I mean, it's not done by a boss. It's being done by the people who want it to pass, which is their right to say that. But isn't that a bit of a scare tactic in a way?
No.
Well, just to say that you might not be as safe in your own city if you don't pass this.
But it's true.
But is it true that the Koch brothers will lay people off if Obama's elected?
You've got two different things here,
Yes,
Scott.
it is two different.
This isn't the same. Here, it's we really need the protection in Marion City, and you're talking about the Koch brothers and their company. It's totally different.
I think a lot. This is what I think we should talk about politics for: is that people are becoming more outspoken. It isn't so much about the issue anymore. When Mike Mastro makes that statement in an open meeting that if you don't support the county sales tax, that you support sex offenders and drug abusers, to me, I understand what he meant, but that's trying to scare people. And it's not coming from a company. You're right. It's not coming from a company, but it is coming from people who want that agenda passed. If it had come from an ordinary citizen, I don't think it would have been a big deal. But when it comes from the person who's leading the charge to have that tax passed, I think people go further than they have to. You know, this is a sales tax. We want to help the police force. You know, I don't know. It reminds me of the whole national thing, terrorist thing. You know, the whole campaign in 2004 for George W. Bush was, you better elect Bush because he's going to make us safer. Kerry doesn't know what he's going to do. You know, he doesn't understand terrorism. He doesn't get it like Bush. Bush has known it for 4 years. And I think he scared people into voting for him. And I think most people would say that now. What do you think, Marianne?
Well, words are strong. There's no doubt about it. But I just think that to try to intimidate a voter is wrong in any sense of the word.
And I think most people would agree. Which is worse, this or being able to donate to a campaign and not say who you are, any amount?
I think to me, the Supreme Court ruling is obscene.
Yes.
It is totally obscene. All of the money that is allowed to be spent with nobody saying who it comes from is wrong. Totally wrong. And I think that should be repealed. I'm sorry. I think that it was a horrendous decision.
Yes,
don't you?
I agree.
For
yes.
both parties. I mean, they have spent millions and millions and millions of money, and just think where that money could go. I think there should be some kind of a limit that you can spend on campaigns, and it should be the same for both parties or whoever's running. I mean, to think of the amount of money that was spent on this campaign just makes me sick.
Mary Ellen, is this thing with the Coke Company an extension of that?
Yes.
Is it an?
I'm answering for you.
Is it
an extension of what?
Of you can donate however much money to whoever you want
yes,
and not have
yes.
to.
Yeah, even in Sherrod Brown's campaign, it's up to I think 23 million now. Most of it's the Koch brothers. Yeah, it's well when the Supreme Court made this decision, everyone knew that this was really bad, and I think sometimes the Supreme Court doesn't think through things quite right.
Well, it's my understanding now that a foreign entity, somebody from China, could come in and for the most part, I hate to use this term, but buy a candidate. Say, I'm going to give you this much money. I don't have to declare where it came from, but you better do what I need to do.
Well, that's
when
what
the
they're
time
doing.
comes.
I mean, they're buying a candidate. I mean, absolutely.
Yes. And what the problem is that one party raises this amount of money, then the other party has to raise that amount of money or more, or they're going to be, you know, they're going to be weakened. So, I mean, to me, it is there should be a set amount that can be paid in a campaign. I mean, you know, here we have all of these people out there who are needy. And all of these millions and millions of money being spent on campaigns, and so many of them are untrue. They are both sides lie. It's disgusting.
Well, tell me this. Why are people able to lie more now? Or do you think it is more now? Do you think it's always been this way? Because we started off the discussion on politics saying that Marianne said it was worse now. It's worse now. No bipartisanship at all. Is it worse now? I mean, why can people just go on television and lie? And nobody says a word, nobody questions it, nobody cares, they'll believe it. And I said this last time we did a program, and people can check it, it's on the internet, and I'll say it again here in front of the group. The fact that people in this country are still talking about the president not being born here is so appalling and so ridiculous. I mean, come on, but people still believe it, and they go on because people like Donald Trump, who have a lot of money, go on television and keep bringing this issue up. Why do people believe it?
Well, it's the people that are not really wanting to believe it. It's their problem. Usually they're, I might say, Republican. That's who they are.
Did anybody doubt that was coming? I knew we'd get around to that eventually, and that's okay, because it's good to do that. I'm going to switch away from politics for just a second and talk about something that I found quite strange, and I know what the male point of view, I know what my point of view is, but I do want to get a female point of view on this. A Cleveland bus driver, and that happened in our state, a Cleveland bus driver has been suspended after he hit after how he treated an irate female passenger. I don't know how many of you have seen this video, but look it up on YouTube at home. It's all over the place. What happened was the female passenger got on the bus. She wouldn't get off. The bus driver told her to get off, said she was causing a ruckus. She grabbed the bus driver by the neck. She hit him in the arm or something of that nature. You can't really see. It's hard to make out. She grabbed him around the neck. The male bus driver stood up and punched her. And you can see it. He punched her, and he threw her off the bus. And the word that I heard people say about this, not from me, is that if you act like a man, you have to expect to be treated like a man. And I didn't say that. Don't pin that on me. Marianne, give me your opinion.
Well, you know, there was probably something mentally wrong with that woman. I mean, you know, who would do that? I mean, there was no reason for her to do whatever she did. And, you know, if the man were any kind of a person, he should have known that, and he should have, you know, maybe grabbed hold of her tightly and maybe shook her and said, you know, but not punching her. And that, to me, there was something wrong with her. I mean, a woman just doesn't do that. Did she say anything?
Well, I think she was unhappy with something going on the bus, but I don't know. I mean, I've seen... Have you been out in public? I mean, I've seen people, they do things. I don't think they're always nuts. I think people get irritated. There's like an adrenaline rush for people all of a sudden sometimes, and they go berserk when somebody yells at them. Have you ever seen people in restaurants when they get the wrong food or they get the wrong drink? All of a sudden they're like Mussolini in the restaurant. They're just so upset that this can't be done. I don't know.
Well, I haven't seen that, so maybe I don't have the experiences you have, Scott. But I just think he could have handled it a little bit better, you know. Could have tried to restrain her and, you know, but it sounds like, did he beat her up?
Punched her once, but one punch is enough to put you in a bad way. Mary Ellen, what do you mean?
I know you're going to ask me about that.
I know.
Well, you know what I've always found out when I was county treasurer and people were really upset about their tax bill, I'd usually send them over to the auditor's office. But I also realized in most cases they had some really bad sickness in their family. They had something that was really upsetting them. And that made me treat people differently than I would have ordinarily. And this woman might have had something, I mean, she might have been really ill or something. I don't know, you know.
So I guess the end question becomes, is it okay for him to hit her?
No, it isn't.
Okay.
No.
Well, that's
you
I don't
know
think it
that.
is
We
either.
all know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I hope we all know that, but I
Yeah,
do know that
right.
people were coming out and saying, they said that line, if you act like that, if you want to act like a man, you have to expect to be treated like a man. I don't know. Does anybody agree with that? Should he have hit the woman for choking him and punching him? Do you ever do that?
Whenever you're afraid, you do strange things sometimes. Your judgments clouded.
It's true.
Yeah, it's true.
If you're afraid and all of a sudden someone hits you, you react instantly.
Should he lose his job? No. Yeah, go ahead.
It was the best emotion at the time to jeopardizing the safety of all the passengers.
Oh, well, see, now this opens another can of worms here as we're running. I don't think it was in motion. I think I can answer that. But I heard some no's out here. Should he be fired? No?
Because you don't know what she would have done, continued to do. He removed her from the bus, maybe not appropriately, but at least everybody else on the bus was okay.
So it's not okay to hit her, but it's okay to keep your job.
He could have handled it a little bit better. I mean, if
Should he
could have-
keep his job, Marianne?
Well, yes, I think so, because but if he would have just maybe got hold of her strongly and, you know, and maybe somebody else on the bus could have helped. I mean, I would think there would be other people there that would, you know, help the situation.
Mary Ellen, should he be fired?
Well, I think he should.
I agree with you. I'm going to go against the grain here with you, and I do too. I don't think it's ever okay to hit a
Maybe
woman.
they don't have any training for situations like that. Maybe they.
And you know that you don't, until you know the entire situation.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true. But I guess I
Don't
would-
make a snap judgment.
That's true. You're right. But I guess I would say that you can't, there should never be a reason in which you hit a woman. You can always, if you're bigger and stronger, you can grab her arms, you can walk her off. You can be rough, but hitting in the face, you're bigger, you're stronger, she can't take you on. I agree with Mary Ellen. I don't think that he should keep his job. If he's that nuts, what's he going to do when somebody cuts him off in traffic? I mean, think about that. He could go out and kill somebody on the street. We don't need that. But anyway, we do have about a minute left. Does anybody have a topic they want to throw out there?
Can we reverse the situation?
What's that? What's that, George?
I'm in the bar and restaurant business.
Right?
This lady was in the bar with a big butcher.
George, come over here and speak into the mic so we can get this. I know. Oh, you'll be fine. Come on. We want to get this story.
Okay, yeah, it's a neat story. Back to what you're talking about. This lady walks in my restaurant part and comes into the bar area, and this man who her husband is sitting with a young lady, and he's got his arm around her. She's got a butcher knife. I don't know whether she's going to stick it in the husband or in her girlfriend.
Oh, my.
I saw the knife, and that scared me.
Is this a true story?
True story. What are you talking about? I was downtown for 60 years. I had a lot of problems with husbands and wives. And I think she was going to stick her husband in the neck. I was young then. This has been years ago. I jumps over the bar. I had grabbed this little club that I had. Bam! I whaps her up against the side of the head, knocks her out. And on the way over the bar, I said, "Mary, call the police." I drug her out the back door. She told him to go to the cruiser. The cruiser pulls up out and back. And I said, I had to knock this lady out. And I had the butcher knife in my hand. I handed him the knife, and he put her in the cruiser. He says, "George, that was the best thing to do."
Well, here would be my only question to that. Could you have taken the knife away from her without clubbing her in the head?
No, because I was on this side. She had the knife in her right hand. I couldn't reach around the back. I actually, bam, knocked her out. And I actually picked her up and carried her out the back door. And the police cruiser came up and arrested her, took her to jail. I never heard what happened, but at least she didn't stick the knife in somebody.
Okay, in that condition, Mary Ellen, on the last note of this episode, what do you think?
Well,
in that situation?
it could have saved a person's life. There's no doubt about it. And there are emergencies that happen like that. So.
Well, I'm just referring to the
I get it.
the bus driver punching the girl.
Did you feel bad about clubbing the woman?
No, because I swear this lady was coming full blast, ready to stick somebody with that.
Would it have been different if it was a man? You would have done the same thing?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I did that before. I did that at another time.
Did you feel bad because it was a woman?
I didn't want to really do it, but I had to because that knife was it was a butcher knife.
Did the woman, she woke up. Did she sustain any injuries from the club?
No.
Okay.
Because I checked with the police department. They released her a couple days later.
Did you fear that she was going to swing the knife at you?
No, because by the time I got over the bar, I was partially in back of her, right in back of her. I didn't see the front of her. But, well, afterwards, I spoke to the husband. I said, what is with this? He said, we're getting a divorce and all the, I don't want to get into all the details.
I understand. Well, Mary Ellen, I'm going to give you the final word on this one because we agreed that you shouldn't hit a woman in any case. What do you feel about that? Would that have been an okay situation?
Well, yes, I think probably you had to do something quick.
Oh, that was it?
Yeah.
How can... Now, the question was about this bus driver. Did he come to a stop, or was the bus still moving?
I think he had a stop. I think he was at a stop. I'm almost certain he was at a stop because I think the woman was trying
She came
to
up behind him and punched him. You said punched him in the arm or
punched,
somewhere.
yeah, and then tried to choke him, grabbed him around the neck.
Well, that's kind of self-defense, really, when you think about it. Self-defense.
I don't know. Boy, we'll have to argue this one out because we want to get the music on here. But I just don't think You have to punch a woman. There's just something about it, because then you have to question every domestic case you go to, because how many times are the police officers there when the woman gets hit? They're not. You only can go on what they say. And I'm sure the man would say, well, I thought I was in danger. And maybe they did feel they were in danger. But leave, get up, run. If you're well able enough to punch somebody, then you're well able enough to turn the doorknob and leave. You know, I'd have left the bus parked and got out of there. That'd have been the end for me. What an interesting episode this has been. Remember, you can catch us on YouTube, Mary Ann, Mary Ellen. It's always fun to be with you both.